Hi, everybody. Recording this on Saturday, it's April 6th, 2024. Some of you may remember this book that I put out a year ago. And in light of current events, I wanted to read some of the material from it. We really appreciate everybody who supports Brass Check. If you've seen the recent films, part one, part two, part three of Why Are These Israelis Dancing? Go ask a professional filmmaker how many six figures they'd have to write to produce that thing that we've already produced and given away for free. And we've got more coming. But we've got a sort of news bulletin, which we knew, but we can only tell you so much. There's only so many hours in the day. This mass murder of Palestinian civilians is being directed by artificial intelligence. And we warned about this in our book a year ago. Right. I'm a little frustrated, right? Because the $1 million podcasters have no time for any of this stuff. And yet it's really the most important stuff. So the book is called The Artificial Intelligence Question and Answer Book. And again, it came out in 2023. Part three, we'll say part one is what is artificial intelligence? Part two is what it really is, right? So there's the academic public relations explanation of what artificial intelligence is. And then there's what's really in it. And I have a chapter. If the Nazis had Chat GPT, how would they use it? And we talk about the money trail and all the various, I don't know even how to describe these people. And anyway, part three is called Ominous Rumblings. And here's what we have in it, sections. Artificial intelligence as a weapon of war. Next section, autonomous killing. This is what literally is going on in Israel. We said it was going to happen with artificial intelligence. We list the names of the companies involved, the people involved, the research programs involved, and we were right. They've been working on autonomous killing. What does autonomous killing mean? It means a artificial intelligence program determines you are a threat to the people, and a drone or a order is given to a fighter pilot to go, and they know where you are thanks to total surveillance, to go after you and murder you automatically. They're saying that the reviews of the assassinations and the murders of individuals, specific individuals in Gaza, would go through this machine process, and they would be reviewed by a human being for an average, and I think they're overestimating, of 20 seconds each. So in other words, a kill order of a human being, and somebody spent all of 20 seconds making sure that the data was even correct. Now, Obama started this, by the way. Maybe we'll find the video, which we ran when it happened. He actually murdered an American citizen in Yemen. You know, we've been paying attention to Yemen. None of the $1 million podcasters have paid any attention to Yemen. We've been paying attention to it since day one. But Obama got this started using, I don't know if it was a drone, but it was some kind of a missile strike against an American citizen. Okay, he had some opinions that the national security state didn't like. He wasn't violent. He didn't kill anybody, but he was considered an enemy of the people. And using not artificial intelligence, but basically just clicking off a box, and this guy was offed. And now Israel has automated the process and is doing it to tens of thousands of innocent civilians. And it's, as of today, April 6th, they're still doing it. Nobody's calling them on it. The UN is rumbling a little bit. The Arab states are missing in action. There's only a handful of countries that are doing and saying anything about it. South Africa is one of them. And then I don't want to get myself murdered here, so I won't mention the other countries that are doing anything about it. But there are other countries that are doing something about it. And it's not England, it's not France, it's not Canada. Oh, Canada. It's not the United States, it's not Japan, it's not even China or Russia. It's countries that are supposedly beneath discussion who are actually standing up and trying to help the people in Gaza. Remember, none of these countries that have been aggressive towards Israel recently were aggressive in a big way until the Gazans started being murdered. Just keep that in mind. Sometimes you don't know who your real friends are. They're certainly not in Washington, D.C., London, Bonn, or Paris, or any of the Arab states. Right. So let's go back to this. Artificial intelligence as a weapon of war. I urge you to get the book. It helps support us, but it educates you and educates your family and your friends and your community. And it was written a year ago when this was important to know about and talk about. Now everybody's going to be playing catch up and everybody's going to be an expert overnight about it. Well, here's the book. Came out last year. Do I seem aggravated? I'm a little aggravated sometimes. All right, so artificial intelligence as a weapon of war. Here we go. The Department of Defense and the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, played a significant role in the development and funding of the progress of artificial intelligence. It was envisioned as a weapon of war, and therefore they could justify the funding, the enormous funding required to develop AI. That's where the money came from. Who's big in AI? MIT. What's MIT? It's just an extension of the Department of Defense, has been since the beginning, since it's opened its doors. In the early days of AI research, the Department of Defense was one of the primary sources of funding for AI projects in the United States. I'm going to say 90%. Because, and by the way, I got these answers from ChatGPT itself. So I asked the questions. By the way, I'm sure these answers are going to be real different. If you try to get the same answers that I got before the censorship was put in place in ChatGPT, that's why I wrote this book, because I wanted to get this information before they purified it. The military was interested in AI because of its potential to automate decision-making and improve the efficiency of military operations. Automate, that means have less people. You don't need as many soldiers. You don't have to draft as many people. You don't have to depend on volunteers. You can just have a machine decide who to kill. That's what they mean by automating the decision-making. And improve the efficiency. What does efficiency mean? Less guys doing more murder. That's what efficiency means. In this context, in 1958, DARPA was established by the Department of Defense to fund research into advanced technologies for military purposes. You know, it's an inevitability of life. I get it. DARPA played a crucial role in the early development of AI, funding some of the earliest AI research projects, including the development of natural language processing and expert systems. So this has been going on since the 1950s. And somewhere in this book, and I used to laugh when people would be an author of a book on a show and they couldn't remember a detail in their own book. I thought, what kind of an idiot wouldn't know what's in his own book? Me. It's really weird. That's why you write books, so you can go and refer to them later. Really, that's one of the purposes of writing a book. And I believe that I'm pretty sure that artificial intelligence as a term and even as a concept was coined in the 1950s. So DARPA, Department of Defense, was in on it right away. In the 70s and 80s, DARPA funded the creation of the Strategic Computing Initiative, which aimed to develop advanced computer technologies for military purposes. As part of that initiative, DARPA funded research into AI technologies, including natural language processing and machine learning. DARPA has continued to fund AI research in more recent years, yeah, that's an understatement, with a focus on developing AI technologies for military applications, including autonomous and intelligent decision-making tools. So that means the tools are going to decide who to kill. And now, because we've got these marvelous drones that everybody's is so in love with now, you can have a drone go out and do the killing. So you can literally, literally, and this is what Israel's doing, by the way, right? This is not, I was predicting it last year. This is what Israel is doing it. This is now the standard of war, thanks to the the maniacs in Israel who are supported by the maniacs in the United States government and all the other governments too, by the way. Now a computer based on God knows what can decide you are a enemy of the state, a risk, a terrorist, because of your thoughts, right? And I don't want to panic people. Don't worry. This is not going to happen to you. But this is a bad trend. It's a bad tendency, and it is happening to people in Gaza. Their AI made a hit list of people to murder. It appears that that hit list had very little human interaction. Nobody even looked at the list, and then they just put it in the laundry list for the fighter pilots and the bombers and the AI drones, and then sent these things out with 20 seconds of human evaluation. I'm going to guess it's really a lot less to murder people. And when you look at the people who've been murdered by the Israelis in the last 6 months, a lot of aid workers, a lot of doctors, a lot of cultural leaders. One of the leading guys in bringing peace and understanding between people in Gaza and Israelis, Jews really. And we, this whole long thing. You got to understand, if you're a Zionist, you're not a Jew. You're a Zionist. Okay? No real Jew is a Zionist. Okay, we've done shows on this. Rabbis have talked about this. It's the biggest con job in the world. If you're equating Zionism with Judaism, you just don't know what you're talking about. Okay, Zionism is a con put on by a bunch of homicidal, larcenous, now genocidal criminals. They wrap themselves in the Star of David and are shielding themselves with the fraud that they are Jewish people. They are not. They're Zionists. And Zionists are thieves and murderers. That's what they are. That's what they do. You know what people are by what they do. Look at the history of Zionism, especially in Israel since 48 or even before, when they were bombing everybody. They were terrorists. We've done videos on this. It was the Zionists who brought terror bombing to the Middle East. They brought it. Look up the King David Hotel. They killed their own people just to make a point. All right. But anyway, I don't want to go too off the track here, but you should know this history. And if you don't, read The Empty Wagon by Rabbi Yaakov Shapiro. Okay. Big, thick book. He goes through every fragment of Zionist history and shows how the whole thing is a scam, a con, and a sinister one indeed. So if you're equating Zionism with Judaism, you're an anti-Semite. You, not me. You are an anti-Semite if you think Judaism and Zionism are the same thing. Just because you were born to a Jewish mother doesn't mean you're not a anti-Semite. If you're supporting Israel, especially now, you are a full-blooded anti-Semite. You are destroying the reputation of Judaism actively by supporting Israel. That's what you're doing. Anyway, got to go on that rant. And overall, the Department of Defense and DARPA have been a significant funder of AI research and development in the United States and in Israel. And their contributions have played a critical role in the development of AI as we know it today. All right, that's the section on artificial intelligence as a weapon of war. Then I go into the NSA's role. Then I go into MIT's role. Remember, MIT is just an extension of the Department of Defense. Then we talk about the Mitra Corporation, big into defense, big into aviation, big into cybersecurity, all of which come to a crescendo in the use of AI to create lists, hit lists, and just automatically go out and murder people without any human review at all. And then by the way, and this is the con of artificial intelligence. Then what happens? Then they can say, oh, gee, it was the computer did it, right? In the olden days, people who are old enough to know, remember, everything was blamed on computer error, right? Some corporation screwed you, right? Oh, it was just a computer error. Sorry. Of course, they did it to 10,000 customers, but it was a computer error. Then it became, well, it was on the internet, so I don't blame me. Now it's, well, AI told us to do it. So AI told us to murder men, women, children, non-combatants, all innocent victims, all. Uh, did they kill some fighters? Maybe by accident, because what they're doing really well is killing innocent people. And of course, the United States is not only permitting it. I mean, we are literally handing the guy, the guy's just killed somebody, he's just killed a family, and he's out of bullets. So we are literally handing him a new gun because the other gun is a little hot. We're going to hand him a new gun loaded. And we're doing it over and over and over and over again. Every day of the week, every hour of the day. We've been doing it for 6 months. That's what the United States is doing. And who funded this Mitra Corporation? Well, oh boy, that was the Department of Defense, the national security agencies, the NSA and the Department of Defense. Yeah, they work together, and they're helping uh, fund AI. Who founded Mitra? So I'm getting into the weeds in this book like nobody else does. Oh, that was the Air Force and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Remember I said MIT was just an extension of the Department of Defense? By the way, who was Jeffrey Epstein working really hard to infiltrate? And had a lot of buddies, including Noam Chomsky. This is really weird. Why did he go after Noam Chomsky? Artificial intelligence. That Noam Chomsky, besides being, a speaker on geopolitical issues, one of the great leaders of artificial intelligence, natural language processing. And he and Jeffrey Epstein were buddy, as was Marvin Minsky, another MIT uh, uh, artificial intelligence person. Why was Jeffrey Epstein hanging out with all the artificial intelligence people at MIT? Well, if you watch part 3 of Why Are These Israelis Dancing, you will get the answer, and you will get it nowhere else. All right. Um, let's see. Machine learning, algorithms, right? The algorithm. I guess it's the algorithm. Oh, we had to take your video off because of the algorithm. I have to be careful what I say because of the algorithm. You see how that works? No humans responsible. Oh, we didn't do it. The algorithm did it. Oh, just a mistake. Of course, now the mistakes involve the slaughter of tens of thousands, ongoing to this moment, of tens of thousands of innocent civilians. Oops, the algorithm did it. AI did it. All right, my next section in this book and came out last year. And those of you who support Brass Check, thank you very much. I could be doing things that make money. Instead, I'm doing this. So by supporting me, you get this information that you are literally getting nowhere else. I defy you to try to find this content. Try to find a whole bunch of try to find anything like Why Are These Israelis Dancing? That series. If you haven't watched it, you really should. And it's 2 half-hour segments and then an hour segment, and we're working on the fourth one. Defy you to find anybody who's putting this together the way Brass Check is. So when you support us, you're supporting the news. I always say you get the news you deserve. You don't like CNN and Fox and all this other crap. You deserve it if you're not supporting it. If you are supporting it, thank you very much. And you're doing it on behalf of the people that aren't doing the support. All right. So the next section was called Autonomous Killing, 2023. And here's what's in the book. Autonomous weapons, also known as killer robots, are weapon systems that can identify, target, and attack individuals or groups without human intervention. Let me read that again. Remember, this was written in 2023, before we discovered that Israel was massacring tens of thousands of civilians based on nothing more than AI. Autonomous weapons, also known as killer robots, are weapon systems that can identify. What if they identify you incorrectly? Target, well, that's just putting a target on your back so the drone can find you or the missile can find you, and attack individuals or groups, in this case, 2.5 million, 2.5 million, 2.5 million civilians in Gaza They are able to make decisions. Yeah, I'm well aware of how computers are able to make decisions about when and how to use lethal force without human direction or control. When to use the lethal force and how to use it, and no human needs to be involved. Remember, we were going to have self-driving cars. Remember, Elon Musk and all the other con artists were telling us that by 2000, what was it, 2010 or 2020, some crazy number, we're all going to have autonomous cars and they're going to drive us around and everything's going to be just hunky-dory. Um, I said, this is absolute bullshit. It's not technically possible. It's not advisable. It's not desirable. Really? You want to get into a car and leave it up to a computer program to make sure you don't crash head on into a brick wall? Are you kidding me? What kind of a moron would go for that deal? And yet this was all the rage. I had all my tech friends who were so genius telling me, "Oh, Ken, you're really negative. This is going to happen." But now we know we can't even drive a car down the street autonomously without creating a problem, right? But we're going to decide to we're going to identify and target and murder a human being based on technology. Okay. Now this is different from semi-autonomous weapons, which require human oversight and decision making before using lethal force. And as the research has come out, Israel apparently, if this is even accurate, spends a grand total of an average of 20 seconds of human contemplation before they murder an individual in Gaza. Autonomous weapons are a subset of artificial intelligence, right? Here's artificial intelligence. Here's autonomous weapons. Okay. When our AI was designed, this was the plan in the very first place. Can we come up with targets and deploy machines to destroy and kill without needing human beings, pesky, annoying human beings that need to be fed and housed and clothed? They like to sleep. They like to take vacations. Useless, right? We got to have a machine make these decisions. Okay. Autonomous weapons are a subset of artificial intelligence and military technology and are being developed by several countries around the world. Now, interestingly enough, somebody got through to ChatGPT even way back a year ago and made sure that Israel was scrubbed from this list. Oh, no, there it is. I just saw it. Sorry. The development of autonomous weapons has raised ethical and legal concerns. No kidding. As well as concerns about the potential for unintended consequences and accidents. Accidents. We just accidentally killed that child. Feel sorry for us because we had an accident. Oh, and that was an unintended consequence. We created a system to identify and murder people without any meaningful human intervention, and it killed innocent people. That was an unintended consequence. Yeah. Who is working on autonomous weapons development? Various military organizations and defense contractors, defense contractors, defense contractors, defense contractors. Okay, they're the ones pushing this whole thing. They're the ones that keep Israel on its feet. They're the ones that, yeah, basically they're the one. If you want to know why civilians are being slaughtered in Gaza right now as we speak, look into the military contractors. This is a grand payday for them. It's a payday for them right now because here's how it works. You create all this ammunition, all these weapons, and they're sitting in a warehouse. What do you do with them? Well, thank God Putin invaded Ukraine, right? Because now we could empty all our warehouses out of all this stuff that we didn't have any use for. And guess who gets the payday? Refilling the warehouses. When we reload Israel's gun every freaking day to murder a new child, guess who gets a payday? This is the defense industry. How much defense industry stuff have you seen anybody talking about in the mainstream news media related to Israel? Even the alternative news media. It's all about Israel, Israel, Israel. And yeah, Israel is a sick, sick country. They will go down in history as one of the most evil regimes that ever existed in the history of mankind. That's pretty hard to achieve. But you got to look who's behind it, who's making it possible. If you hand a madman a loaded machine gun and push him into a nursery school, what do you think is going to happen? Who's responsible? I mean, the Israelis are absolutely responsible. But I think the guy that gave them the loaded machine gun with the safety off is also responsible. And they're behind the curtain. No one's mentioning them. No one's discussing them. No one's discussing that artificial intelligence was designed by the military for the purposes, among other things, of creating autonomous killing machines. And who is pushing it? The defense industry and all the corrupt generals, right? You're a general for 20 years, you retire with your vast pension after doing fuck all nothing. And now you're getting a pension. What do? You go to work for a defense firm, helping sell their crap to your buddies that are still on the payroll at the Pentagon. This is the game. This is the United States. This is how it works. All right, see what else do we have in this book? There's the book. You can get it. You can own it. Um, they include who's doing this? Well, UK, of course, Russia, of course, China, Israel, United Kingdom. Okay. What academic institutions in the US are providing research and development for autonomous weapons? Remember those guys that told us that COVID was going to destroy humanity and that we had to shut down all of our businesses, our schools, our religious institutions? We had to bankrupt tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of small business operators and immiserate billions of people all over the world. Remember those people, those academic people? That they knew beyond the shadow of a doubt that COVID was so deadly that everyone was going to get and everyone was going to die unless we all locked down and then wore masks endlessly. And then the only way you're getting out of this is all the academics. Thank you very much. With a few exceptions, and those few exceptions are finding their careers sabotaged. They're being fired. The vast majority of the academics in this country absolutely went along lockstep with locking you down, destroying your business, making your life miserable, making your children's life miserable, making the last days of your parents' lives miserable. And then we've got, where's that book? If you don't have this, you don't know what happened during COVID. It wasn't just a few people being inconvenienced. In the hospitals, it looks like hundreds of thousands of people were murdered. By the way, they used AI to do that projection. They used AI to create the model of the novo coronavirus. They used artificial intelligence to guess how the virus worked. And they used artificial intelligence to develop the injections. I won't call them vaccines, and nobody should. Not even the manufacturer calls them vaccines. To develop the gene therapy. That was all plotted out because you can't see these things. You have to project. You have to use computer models to even come up with this madness. And so I have another book which probably will never get written because I only have so many hours in the day where where I have the manuscripts here. If anybody wants to buy 6 months of my time so that I can write that book, it's already written, really. I just have to, go through the hell of putting it between covers, which is quite a bit of work if you've ever done it. Because we self-publish our own books. Ain't no publisher's going to publish what I publish. Ain't no bookstore's going to carry it either. That's why we have to deal with the devil with Amazon. I now see the nurse's book is selling so well, I think you can find it on eBay. So if you don't like one devil, you can buy the book from another devil. And I have to say this about that. Look, I'm not a big fan of gasoline, and how it's extracted and how it's transported and all the misery involved and all the pollution. But you know what? I drive a car sometimes. Well, what's my option? To live in a grass hut and walk everywhere? So I get that you don't like Amazon. I don't like Amazon either. But that's where my books are because nobody else will carry them. And I can't afford to have a warehouse full of books and people packing books and shipping them. I can't. Where am I going to get this? I don't have that kind of money. But Amazon will do it. For now, we should be really grateful that the censorship machine has not fully taken over Amazon yet. They have done some dirty things. But pretty much, they're publishing good books if you write them and bring them to them. In any event, it was the AI, the academics, back to the academics. They are the reason. They were the enablers of the COVID catastrophe. They could have shut it down on day one. They could have shut it down after the second week. They could have shut it down at the first month. They didn't. They let it run, and many, 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 many of them supported it. There was some psychopathic jackass at Princeton, an economics professor. I'm so sorry I don't know his name. And the the freaking morons that run the Princeton Alumni Weekly um, published this article, or really early on, and you might say, well, what's the big deal? It's just an alumni. No, no, it goes to 100,000 people who have money and influence all over the world. So even though the people running this alumni magazine are morons, sub morons, they do have this influence. And so what did the economist said? He said, well, look, um, we really need to lock the world down because based on the projection, remember the projections that 10 million people were going to die in England alone, and they turned out to be fraudulent. And the guy that published them turned out to be, meeting with his girlfriend, behind his wife's back under COVID. Everybody else is locked down, but this guy that predicted the end of the world, he felt safe enough to go and canoodle with his girlfriend. By the way, he still has a job. His numbers were completely wrong. He still has a job. He's been wrong before. This economist said, well, I think even more people are going to die. And if you calculate the value of the lives of those people that are going to die, it's worth $10 trillion in economic damage. I forget what the number was. It was something huge. It's worth we'll call it 10 trillion. It's worth the 10 trillion damage that it's going to do to the world economy. And by the way, when we say the world economy, we're talking about people not able to eat, people not able to go to work, people not able to maintain their businesses and professions and practices. So when we're talking about economic damage, we're not talking about some abstraction. We're talking about human suffering. So this Princeton economist said, oh, I think it's perfectly fine to shut down the world for an unlimited amount of time because we're going to save so many lives. Well, his numbers were off by a factor of, I think, 20. And I don't want to be, an actuarial here, but, if when I'm 80, I don't think I'm going to live another 50 years. Okay. So actuarially speaking, when you kill children, as COVID did, our suicide rate of children went through the roof, unprecedented. Children that needed medical care and disabled children that need ongoing care did not receive it. But this economist said, well, that's worth it because we're going to save trillions of dollars in the future lifetime. I mean, it was insanity, but that's the academic world. They're at best, I don't want to call them whores because whores work for a living. I don't know what to call these people. They're deviants. They're deviants. They're cowardly deviants, and they're the ones that put us through the COVID misery. They justified it. They backed it up, and then the rest of them kept silent. And it was just a handful. You see the handful that came out, but that's the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg. The vast majority of academics enabled the COVID catastrophe, and they're enabling what's going on in Israel today, in Gaza today, taking us back to this idea of artificial intelligence and autonomous weapons. So let's talk about the academic institutions that are supporting the development of autonomous weapons. And this is what ChatGPT says, and it's so great because it's so full of lies, and it's gotten worse. It's not gotten better. As far as I know, most academic institutions in the US do not provide research and development for autonomous weapons. Okay, as far as I know, that's a good weasel clause. In other words, there's a lot that, you have to teach ChatGPT what to know. So if you're the trainer of ChatGPT, you can just leave out all the important stuff. And if you find out that it knows some stuff that you don't want it to know, you can teach it to not tell people. And that's how ChatGPT works. And I'm glad to see that it is a much less vaunted thing in society. People are not paying as much attention to it as they used to. I think they realize it's a steaming pile of crap, as are the people that developed it. So as far as I know, okay, that's a weasel word, most academic institutions in the US do not, most, but not all. Now, Now, why not? Because it's controversial, and many people believe they pose significant ethical and moral concerns. Uh, da, 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 da. Development is primarily being pursued by military. Okay. It is worth noting that the development of autonomous weapons is primarily being pursued by military organizations and defense contractors. Yeah, so again, the defense contractors and the people they own in the military are the ones pursuing it. But believe me, when they need pieces or to the puzzle, they're going to academia. And if you think these academic people don't know that their research, their pure research, is being used, and they're being wined and dined by the military contractors. If you don't think that research is ending up in the pipeline to develop these autonomous killing weapons, you got another thing coming. What about MIT? Again, this is from the book, the Artificial Intelligence Question and Answer book published by Braszczek in 2023, well in advance of the AI slaughter going on in Israel right now, which has finally made the headlines 6 months too late. MIT has a long history of research in robotics and artificial intelligence, including the development of autonomous systems for various applications. Weasel words, legal weasel words. Various, could that be military? Yeah, it could be military. But in 2018, the university announced it would no longer work on the development of autonomous weapons. It would no longer work. So up until 2018, which when I wrote this book was only 5 years before this book came out, they had been continuously working on autonomous weapons. How many grad students did they train who are now working for defense companies who have taken the ball and are now carrying it down the field? Hundreds? That's just MIT. All the other schools, let me name them. Caltech. I just forgot the one out in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh. Rensselaer, RIT. They're all over. They're all over. Mellon, Carnegie Mellon. They at least up until 2018, they were a little factory churning out autonomous killing machine robot academics. And I guarantee they're all getting beautiful six-figure salaries and living in lovely suburbs and sending their kids to beautiful schools while the fruit of their work is murdering the most downtrodden and vulnerable people on the planet. And I hate to tell you, and this will come out to be demonstrated. They've opened Pandora's box, right? Other countries are going to start doing this, and Israel, as it always does, and that'll be part of part 4, shows the way when it comes to brutality and inhumanity, breaking just every basic tenet of decency and law. Israel is the pioneer. That's what they really pioneer, right? Everything else is bullshit about that country, but they pioneer repression and injustice and brutality and inhumanity with the help of good old Uncle Sam, who backs them up every step of the way. This is something that's going to appear in the 4th part. There's the Mafia, and then there's Murder Inc. Right? The Mafia hires Murder Inc. I mean, some of them are Mafia people themselves, but as an organization, they're like a separate organization. So you got the Mafia, and they go out and hire Murder Inc. to do its dirty work. Right? That is the relationship between the United States and Israel. We are the Mafia, and Israel is one of the Murder Inc. groups that we hire and use as a front to do what our government, the government that extracts tax money from us, because we pay for it all. When you turn on the TV and you watch it, that's your money. That's your money. All right, so let's go back to pristine, squeaky clean MIT. They're concerned, so they stopped doing it formally in 2018. Okay, let's talk about the defense contractors. Now, surely you're going to see in the next days or weeks, now that the AI thing is finally out of the bag, they're going to list all the defense contractors who are involved in this. Will they? But they're in the book from 2023. Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, General Dynamics, BAE Systems, Palantir. Oh, the brilliant Palantir Technologies and something called Anduril Industries. It's worth noting that some of these companies may not explicitly be developing autonomous weapons, but rather technologies that could be used in such systems. Now, you know, Klaus Schwab, who's been out of, he's done a very good job of staying out of the headlines recently. Um, and everybody needs to know this. I hope we'll squeeze it into part 4. Klaus Schwab was a creation of Henry Kissinger. Who else was a creation of Henry Kissinger? Benjamin Netanyahu. What? Nobody told me that. Look it up. Netanyahu was at Harvard. There's lots of Google Netanyahu and Kissinger, lots of pictures of them, all lovey-dovey. So when you're looking at Klaus Schwab, remember how he was the evil guy of the day. You need to see Klaus Schwab and Benjamin Netanyahu. They're sitting at the same table. They're the same guy, basically. And what did Kissinger represent? The murder and repression of the world's poor on behalf of the military-industrial complex, because poor people have a terrible tendency sometimes to fight back and say no, not allow their land to be stolen, not allowing their resources to be stolen. Those are very inconvenient people. And thanks to Henry Kissinger and Klaus Schwab. So anyway, what I'm talking about, so the reason I brought up Klaus Schwab is, what did Klaus Schwab's father do? Did anybody ever tell you? All these alternative news guys and he was 10,000 hours of reporting on Klaus Schwab. Klaus Schwab's father was an industrialist, and he made the precision equipment that the Nazis were using to try to develop their atom bomb. Yes, yes, yes. And young Klaus Schwab, who was a trained engineer, worked for his father's company. And guess what countries got the atom bomb? With the help of Klaus Schwab, when he was a young man, before he was all about you will have nothing and you will be happy. That's the equivalent of, Arbeit macht frei. If you work here in this prison camp, you will be free. Right? And Klaus Schwab came up with a better one. I think it's even better because it sounds so good. Well, it doesn't really sound that good, actually, but they're still pushing it. You will have nothing and you will be happy. Well, that fellow spent his early adulthood helping transfer atomic weapon capacity to Israel and to South Africa. And Israel, by the way, helped South Africa get the bomb. South Africa has the atomic bomb, by the way. Did you know that? And Israel's got a bunch of them. Still undisclosed. Still undisclosed. We cover that in part 3 of why the Israelis are dancing. And you will learn things about so many things that you will not see anywhere else. But in any event, what my point is, Klaus Schwab and his father didn't build atom bombs. They just built the tools to build atom bombs. See, so they're not really directly involved. So when we hear that these universities are not directly involved, they're building the tools that are making it possible for the defense companies. And who regulates the defense companies, the morality and the ethics of defense companies? That'd be no one. That would be no one in the history of the world. I mean, if they said, well, it'd be a good idea to have a laser satellite that just kills infants at birth, in poor countries, of course. If the defense industry could sell that to the Pentagon, cash register rings, and there's nobody who's going to get involved in interfering with that. Anyway, so when these wonderful academic people who brought us the COVID catastrophe and other catastrophes tell us they're not involved in building those autonomous killing weapons, they're just making the parts and training the personnel to develop them. That's all. That's not no big deal. All right. Do autonomous weapons fall under the general category of AI? And the answer is yes. Specifically, they use AI algorithms. Algorithm. That's how we're going to run the world. Will be run based on algorithm. And they specifically use AI algorithms which is just somebody created it. Somebody said, kill all people that don't look like us. That's an algorithm. That is literally, folks, that's an algorithm. Look at the color of their skin, look at their religion, look at where they live, look at their socioeconomic status, and if they're not in the right box, kill them. That's an algorithm. So when somebody tells you the algorithm did it, a human being came up with the algorithm. And if even if they used AI to create the algorithm, some human being had to look at it and say, yeah. All right, so specifically the AI algorithms and sensor systems, they use AI algorithms and sensor systems, cameras, heat maps, to identify, track, and engage, i.e. kill, targets, i.e. people, any people, babies in their cribs, mothers holding their babies, families, without direct human control. Because as they told us, I know there's a reason I went off on the self-driving cars. If you remember, and I never forget anything, they told us that we needed self-driving cars because of all the mayhem that was going on the roads. And that if we just replaced human beings and the human error, we would have. Elon Musk, look it up, was telling us that that would be the nirvana that we would get with self-driving cars, which we were supposed to get in 2020 because it was a technical inevitability. So they wanted to get rid of human control because human control means human error. And that's how they're looking at these autonomous killing machines. We don't want the human beings to go in there and make an error because they make all kinds of errors. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised. Watch this. Watch what they do. They're going to talk about the human error involved in the most recent murder of these aid workers, these food aid workers. And by the way, this is such proof that we have a hierarchy of human beings imposed by psycho human beings. So 40,000 civilians, men, women, children, non-combatants murdered, no problem. 7 foodies, and I don't want to diminish the horror of what was done to these people, but 7 foodies who are like, on TV, they're associated with this foodie guy, are killed. Ooh, boy, we got to pay attention to that. We've been watching innocent people being murdered for 6 months, but they just killed the employees of a foodie. Can't have that. Anyway, no direct human control, because that's dangerous. It's much better to put it in the form of an algorithm and a sensor. So I asked ChatGPT, are you saying that the decision to kill a selected individual is made by algorithm? And here's the answer. Not sure you can get this from ChatGPT today, because again, ChatGPT is not what they say it is. It is a very human controlled thing with a front. In fact, I talk about that, the fraud. I talk about the fraud of AI in this. Let me go to the chapter here. Where is it? The ancient art of artificial intelligence fraud. The ancient art, yeah. It's in the book. It's in the book. I'm not going to read that part. You got to get the book to find out. This is ancient. This idea of creating automatons that are going to somehow surpass humanity and make life better, but it's all a trick. This ain't new. This is hundreds of years old. All right. It is important to note, this is ChatGPT's favorite phrase. It's important to note that fully autonomous weapons are not yet in use. You're wrong about that, bud. And there's an ongoing debate regarding their legality, ethics, and potential risks. Well, that debate, I guess, was solved because Israel deployed them and has been deploying them for 6 months. Under the watchful eye of the U.S. government and the grand U.S. news media and the grand U.S. academic infrastructure, they've been keeping a sharp eye on this. It's also worth noting that if an autonomous weapon is used, there would have to be human involvement in its development and programming. Very good, ChatGPT. You came up with a logical statement. These are people killing people using the machine as their cover, the same way the US is using Israel as its cover to do what it wants to do. And in part 4, we're going to tell you what it is, why we're killing all these people, because our government is absolutely killing them. Again, someone's got a gun, they just killed a family, and you hand them a fresh gun loaded with fresh ammunition, you're going to prison with that guy forever, as you should. So we are doing this. There's no difference. You know, if I forget this guy, he said, if you're a pirate, you're in trouble. If you steal a nation, it's okay. If you kill one person, you're in trouble, as you should be. You kill a whole population of people under the cover of propaganda and bullshit, no problem. No problem at all. You've referred to sensory systems. What kind of sensory data do they process? The sensory systems of autonomous weapons can vary depending on the type of weapons, but they are designed to process data from various sensors that include cameras, radar, LiDAR, sonar, and other similar sensors. For example, cameras can provide visual information, while radar and LiDAR can provide information about locations and movement of objects. The data collected from these sensors is then processed and analyzed by the weapons algorithm to make decisions on how to act. In other words, who to kill. Right. So the book is called The Artificial Intelligence Question and Answer Book. A Brass Check production, came out in 2023. I've read just a tip of the iceberg of what's in here. We talk about China. China loves artificial intelligence, and we'll tell you why. We'll tell you how artificial intelligence has been used to suppress free speech, and we'll go into it in detail that nobody else has ever gone to. Do you wonder how they managed to take your video, my videos, your videos, or your articles down like a second after you post them, and you don't even know why, and they won't tell you why? We tell you why in this book. All right, what else do we have in here? Yeah, not only that. They're active. It's in the book, but AI was used to create bogus news articles and to suppress truthful, scientifically rational articles from the internet. I describe how it was done in this book. What else do I have here? Twitter and Facebook, of course, and Google. The ancient art of artificial intelligence fraud. What else do I have in here? And the ABCs, if you think, well, what is this artificial intelligence? You can get into that. I get into the money trail. Who are the players? Who's funding all this? I mentioned, some of them, but the individuals, I name the names, right? You can't just say, oh, it's happening out there. It's a system. No, it's particular guys that are doing it. So I name them and give their profiles. Yeah, that's the book. You can get it from Amazon. I recommend you do. And if you're interested in what's going on in Gaza, because one of the things that's going on in Gaza is the first widespread, full spectrum, no holds barred deployment of artificial intelligence in the murder and slaughter and genocide of civilians. Can't call it warfare because the people who are being targeted and murdered seem to always happen to be women, children, and cultural and society leaders. I think the Hamas guys are doing fine. They're in the caves. They pop out. They take some shots. They disappear. They're okay. It's the people who have no means to defend themselves, who are Israel's target. Make no mistake about it. We make it crystal clear in part 3 and then in part 4 of Why Are These Israelis Dancing. There's no possible way to claim, especially at this late date, that this wasn't intended from day one to be an absolute genocide. Speaking of which, we published this book. This is the evidence that South Africa gave at the World Court. All of it, with the footnotes, everything. This is the only place on earth that you can hold the South Africa genocide complaint in your hands and read it. You can go on the internet and read it, but who wants to read on a computer screen? And you can't hand this book to friends who still don't get it. You can't give this book to your library and say, you know what? This is the UN World Court. This is a legal document. Do you think you could carry it, or are you going to censor this too? You might take it to your woke bookstore, who won't carry anything. They certainly won't carry any of my books, and say, do you think you could carry the official text of the UN, of the South African complaint against Israel in the World Court. This is what this is. I have a little historical perspective. I try to be objective. I try to just lay out the history of the World Court, explain what it is, what it isn't, what it can do, what it can't do, how it's structured, who's on it, it's things they've done in the past. Right. So my introductory material is pretty plain vanilla, but the main thing is in the book itself. So lots of books. We're heading to books because our videos are censored so regularly. And it's a little harder to censor a book, not impossible. The woke bookstores are doing a good job. But it's a little harder. You got to burn a book, you got to go old school Nazi and you got to pile them up and burn them. And we're not there yet. We're not there yet. The other thing is you put out a video like this, a few thousand people will see it and then it will be forgotten. Hard to forget this. Hard to make this disappear. Hard to make this disappear. Hard to make this disappear. If you don't know us, we're the publishers of the Nuremberg Code in 12 languages, the only place on earth you can get it in physical form. They can't delete it. They can't cancel it. And then our other very important book, completely ignored as part of what happened at COVID. And this possibly, it's hard to say, the coerced injection of people and all the health problems and medical catastrophes that's caused, that's huge. But here we've got murders and potentially murders in the hundreds of thousands. And you'll see the logic. I'm not trying to be, sensational here. I'm just looking at the math, right? Over 1 million people are said to have died of COVID, which of course we know is bullshit, but that's what they said. So we'll use their number. Over 92% of those people died in a hospital or medical facility under medical care. So that's potentially 900,000 people who died possibly as a result of their medical care. Is it that many? I don't know. Probably not. Is it 10? No, it's way more than 10. Is it 1,000? It's way more than 1,000. Is it 10,000? I think we're at least at 100,000, if not more, and explain why. And it's not me explaining, it's the hospital personnel, the veteran nurses, the veteran respiratory therapists. They're doing the talking. I'm asking the questions. And it's their conclusion that thousands and thousands, potentially hundreds of thousands of people were killed in basically, well, we can't say broad daylight because remember, you weren't allowed to go into the hospitals to see your loved ones. If you are somebody who was in that situation, lost a loved one, and are curious what happened, go to whatthenursessaw.com and you can start to get into this subject and what you can do about it if you feel like doing anything about it. All right, so we've been on a long trip, but it all started with the news item that it's finally been revealed after 6 months of mayhem and murder that Israel uses AI not only to decide who to kill, but to kill them. And that was all predicted in the Brass Check book, the Artificial Intelligence Question and Answer book in 2023. If you want to get into why this thing is a genocide and help educate people about why it's a genocide, here's the South African complaint. Hardly anything more needs to be said. And this is just what was known. We knew this. This is what we knew in December. And actually, we knew it day one. But December, it was so obvious that it became a formal complaint to the UN. And then there's this book. So that's the direction we're going in. Still doing the videos, still doing the websites, but putting out as many books as possible because it's really hard to make physical books disappear. And you can do your part by getting them and getting more than one copy. Bring it to your librarian. See if they'll take it. Then dozens of people can see it. There are still some good librarians, and again, librarians were top of the censorship efforts during COVID. So there's a lot of bad librarians, but there's a lot of good ones still left. I don't know about the woke bookstores. I don't know what to say about them. I just don't. I don't know where you are. We go to bookstores today on April 6, 2024, and there are people, employees in masks. So I don't, maybe they're a lost cause. Anyway, I'm rambling on and on as I tend to do, but to bring this full circle, yes, Israel's using AI, has been using AI to kill civilians. And it may be what they say, oh my God, we had no idea that this thing was so wrong. Yeah, ridiculous. I mean, they are the masters with the help of the US and US PR people, because believe me, they use our PR people with the help of the US and US PR people and US academics and who else? US news media. Oh my God, US news media. They're going to try to sell that this was unanticipated and a tragic consequence. All right. Anyway, Brass Check, buy some books. All right. Take care.